future of the federal trials former President Trump is facing hinges on a hearing at the Supreme Court this morning.
This hearing is over the claim by Trump's legal team that he has absolute immunity for any actions he took as president.
Now, we have a large crew covering this crucial case throughout the day. So let's start with WUSA 9's Jacqueline Quinn, who's been monitoring the scene outside the court all morning long for us. Jacqueline.
Yeah, you know, we have seen some activity since we've gotten here at 4 this morning, but mostly at that time it was the people in line waiting to get in to sit in for this hearing. As far as outside right now, people started showing up about 7:30. This is the extent of the people outside demonstrating, holding signs. One person there holding that sign, absolute immunity, absolute tyranny. And so not really a large crowd outside of the steps of the Supreme Court, but of course a lot of interest because this is unprecedented. This could impact really the way politics is run in this country. So right now, former President Trump will not be here. He's in court in New York for his hush money trial, but the hearing today at the U.S. Supreme Court will examine his claims for presidential immunity. That is what Trump may be criminally liable for. Now, federal prosecutors want to charge him with election crimes, claiming he attempted to overturn the 2020 election and the events leading up to the January 6th attacks on the U.S. Capitol. So far, the lower courts have found he cannot claim immunity. Keep in mind, sitting presidents are immune from lawsuits, but it doesn't stop the Department of Justice from charging former presidents. Trump's legal team has argued denying him immunity would affect the decision-making of every future president because of the fear of being prosecuted. His team has appealed all the way now to the Supreme Court. And when I tell you, we spoke with some of the people online earlier who are willing to get here earlier. They told me that this is very exciting. They want to hear what the top prosecutors and defense lawyers will argue. And also getting to sit in today will be my colleague here, WUSA 9, Jordan Fisher, our investigative reporter. And so tell us, what should we expect? What do you know will happen later today?
Yeah, Jacqueline, here in about an hour, oral arguments are going to begin behind us. The way this is structured is the plaintiff, who in this case is former President Donald Trump, begins their arguments first. Arguing for him will be former Missouri Solicitor General Dean John Sauer. Now, Sauer and Trump have staked out an expansive argument about presidential immunity that would cover nearly anything a president could conceivably do. And if you want to know where they understand the boundary of that to be, you can look at what they argued before the circuit earlier this year. They were asked, could a president send SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival? Sauer said yes, and as long as the Senate did not convict them after an impeachment by the House, they couldn't be prosecuted. Now, arguing for the government will be Michael Dreeben. He's an experienced prosecutor. He's argued before the court more than 100 times, a former deputy solicitor general. And the government's argument here is pretty simple, that everyone is accountable under the law, even former presidents.
Now, Jordan, do you think this is something that could drag on? How long should these arguments take?
What we saw last week when we were here covering the January 6th arguments before the court is that each side is given 30 to 45 minutes. Sometimes it can take more than an hour depending on how many questions the justices want to ask. After that, it's up to the court to decide how long it takes them to return with their decision.
Now, I ask about how long this takes, because we're watching this process. What happens if this continues and perhaps in November, what if the former president is reelected or elected? Could he instruct the Department of Justice to dismiss this case?
Sure. Well, Jacqueline, you mentioned earlier that the former president is in trial right now in New York on a hush money trial for allegedly falsifying business documents. He also has multiple other cases involving national security documents in Florida and an election fraud case in Georgia. Now, what the court could do conceivably here is say that he could be prosecuted. If he were to be reelected, however, he could tell the Justice Department to drop those federal cases. Those would be the cases here in D.C. and in Florida. However, that would not necessarily affect the prosecutor's case in Georgia, or if it were somehow to still continue the case going on right now in New York.
So I know that the arguments start at 10, and they're starting to let people in, so it looks like you're going to be going in there shortly, and we're going to have our team out here covering this for the rest of the day and bring you the very latest. For now in D.C., we'll send it back to you.
All right, Jordan, Jacqueline, thank you so much. An Arizona grand jury has indicted 18 people, accusing them of committing crimes while trying to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election in that state. Now, those charged include Mark Meadows and Rudy Giuliani, of course, the President Trump's chief of staff and personal lawyer. Mr. Trump himself is not charged, but he is referred to as an unindicted co-conspirator. 11 Republicans signed documents claiming to be Arizona's certified electors which they were not because Joe Biden won Arizona.